This is CBC Here and Now.
Southwest could be hammered with 250 plus millimeters of rain through Wednesday. This is definitely one to watch.
He had severe concussion. He had a bloodshot eye, and his face, everything was all kicks to the head.
They say a group of students beat their son unconscious.
The parents of a Mount Pearl student say school violence has ruined their son's life.
Louis had died. You know, everyone was sad. They were emotional.
A sad ending to the story of a whale that enamored a community.
What can be learned for next time?
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes.
Parents of a Mount Pearl teenager say school violence has destroyed their son's life. The 17-year-old was allegedly beaten unconscious by his classmates last year. The family says the school did little to protect him. Here Now's Malone Mullen has the details.
The 17-year-old son of Jana and Glenn Sullivan used to have normal teenage plans for his future. He's an athlete who loves hockey and wanted to graduate from O'Donnell High this year alongside his friends. But the boy's parents say a fateful New Year's Eve party last year snatched those dreams away.
He didn't come out of his room for about 3 weeks. He had severe concussion. He had a bloodshot eye, and his face, everything was all kicks to the head, and so his face was all misshapen.
A group of 6 boys allegedly followed the teen to an empty lot on December 31st last year. They're accused of kicking and stomping him until he lost consciousness. It took him weeks to physically recover, and psychologically the teenager still struggles. His parents say the way the school has treated the incident hasn't helped.
At first, the administration at school had us in, and they knew what happened. And they said, yes, no problem, we'll have your back and everything. But as the year went on, he just ended up doing homeschooling just because it was just abuse every day.
The Sullivans say they've heard little more than lip service from the school and the school board. The accused boys continued to antagonize their son, they said.
Our son said, he said, these are the people that are supposed to have my back, said they were support me. And he said, every time I turn around, I'm involved in it all the time. And he said, I don't know where to turn.
One Safe Schools advocate says the problem extends across the province, and it's getting worse.
For me, if you look at the map of Newfoundland and Labrador, 250 schools, we've got issues in over half. When you have students that are engaging in this type of activity outside of the school community, and they go back to school and that's ignored, there's only one message being communicated to every kid in that school. Violence is acceptable.
The school board wouldn't talk to us at all about school violence, refusing multiple interview requests. And the Sullivan's son moved away this fall to a different school in Nova Scotia. His parents say he couldn't see himself returning to a place that didn't seem to care about his safety.
This is not something he's going to get over quickly. This is going to take time.
Malone Mullen, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
Now, Sullivan's son recently returned to O'Donnell High to graduate alongside his friends. Meanwhile, the Department of Education says it's prepared to deal with violence if it arises, and it says it takes a, quote, restorative approach rather than a punitive one. In a statement to CBC, it said, suspension or moving a student to another school community does not address the underlying issues of school violence, and that suspension may be used, but it is not the long-term solution to these issues.
Well, the first shipment of Pfizer vaccines for children has reached Canada just days after Health Canada approved it. It's the first delivery of more than 2.9 million doses expected to arrive by the end of this week. Pfizer says clinical trials have shown its pediatric vaccine to be nearly 91% effective at preventing COVID-19 in children 5 to 11. The amount authorized for children is 1/3 of the dosage given to anyone over 12. And there are now just 12 confirmed COVID cases in the province, 3 new cases since Friday, 2 in the Western Health area that involve international travel, and 1 in the Central Health region that's connected to a previous case. There is 1 person in hospital because of the virus.
Well, Ashley's here just a moment with details of that rainstorm coming for the southwest coast tomorrow that she mentioned. Marine Atlantic has already canceled the Gulf ferry crossings for tonight and tomorrow morning, and there could be more cancellations coming. Marine Atlantic says travelers should contact the reservations office about making other arrangements.
Well, taking a look at what's going on weather-wise across the province already, that weather maker is already bringing some rain to parts of the province, parts of the maritime provinces along a cold front here. And what's going to happen as we head through the next little bit is that area of low pressure. You can see this cold front extending all the way down to the tropics. It is bringing all of that moisture northward and right to the southwestern portions of the island as we head through the day tomorrow, and then continuing as it stalls into Wednesday, pretty much bringing all of that moisture right up. Right now we do have those rainfall warnings for Port aux Basques through to Burgeo. 100 to 200 millimeters of rain is likely from Tuesday through to Wednesday. Higher elevations could see in excess of 250 millimeters of rain. Certainly looks like it will be a record-breaking event for sure. And then for along the strait, even in southeastern Labrador, rainfall warnings there as well for you. You could see 50 to 75 millimeters in some of those higher elevations. You could see upwards of 100 to 120 millimeters of rain. Also, lots of wind with this one. I'll try and break down that for you when I come back.
As Newfoundland and Labrador continues to navigate a cyber attack that has devastated our healthcare system, we may be able to learn some lessons from our neighbors in St. John, New Brunswick. Now, that city was hit with a cyber attack last November that forced it to shut off its network from the outside world. And more than 1 year later, St. John is still recovering. Carissa Donkin is a journalist with CBC's Atlantic Investigative Unit, and she joins us now from Fredericton. So you've obtained some records about this. What do they tell us about how the attack happened?
Well, Carolyn, we actually got these records through an access to information request, and at first the city refused to hand over most of the records it had about the cyber attack, but eventually, after an access to information complaint, gave us more than 160 pages. And they show us, these records, they show us that the cyber attack looks like it was initiated through an Excel file that was sent through a phishing email. And councillors in St. John were told that this is a Ryuk attack. That's a well-known ransomware variant, and the city manager described this as, quote, a Russian mafia group that are ransom-oriented and will provide de-encryption codes if paid. Now, as for exactly who is behind this attack, Carolyn, the police in St. John, New Brunswick are still looking into this, but didn't give us an update on where that investigation stands.
Okay, of course, our province has been navigating a cyber attack that has delayed life-saving treatments and exposed patient data. So what can we learn from what happened in St. John?
Well, in St. John, the one councillor described the ransom they were asked to pay as between $17 to $20 million worth of Bitcoin. Now, the city didn't end up paying that. They decided to rebuild their network totally from scratch. But I spoke with a cybersecurity expert named Dima Al-Hadidi, and she said if Newfoundland and Labrador is asked to pay a ransom, that the province should follow the lead of St. John and should not pay that ransom if they're asked to do so.
No matter what is the cost, in my opinion, I think that it's better not to pay because this will motivate them to attack other targets in the future.
Now, she also says that public agencies should be open with the public about how these attacks happen and what made them vulnerable.
Oh, it's been a year and St. John is still recovering from this. How much longer could that take?
Well, that's a good question. A city spokesperson in St. John couldn't give me an exact timeline for when they expect to be fully recovered. She says it can take years to recover from these cyber attacks. The other thing, Carolyn, is we don't have, an exact grasp on which systems have fully recovered. So, for example, we don't know how this cyber attack has affected, court proceedings in our justice system in St. John in particular. What we do know is that it's cost almost $3 million so far in this recovery. All but about $400,000 of that is expected to be covered by insurance, but of course that number could still grow since the recovery is still underway.
Well, great information in there, lots to learn from. Thank you so much, Carissa.
Thank you.
That's the CBC's Carissa Duncan in Fredericton.
Well, now to a sad update to a story that we brought you just a couple of weeks ago about Bluey. That's the beluga that's been in the waters around Clarenville for years. Well, on Saturday, Bluey was found tangled in an old mooring near Hickman's Harbour. But unlike many previous entanglements, this time Bluey did not survive. Here now, Zach Gowdy has this update.
This is how people will remember Bluey the beluga, the lovable whale that called the waters near Clarenville its home. He was a favorite sight for many people, but there was another side to the story. Bluey was becoming entangled over and over in the ropes and fishing gear that lined the busy waterway. He was in constant danger of being struck by a ship's propeller. Many worried that if Bluey stuck around, it was only a matter of time before his luck ran out.
Well, we got a call on Saturday from a man in Hickman's Harbor, and he said that Bluey had died. He was in one place and all they could see was a tail, and he wasn't moving from that spot. It seemed to be an old mooring that Bluey was entangled in. It was just once around his head, and that was enough to keep him underwater.
You mentioned there was a number of people there watching, people for whom Bluey had been a familiar sight. What was their reaction as all this was happening?
Everyone was sad. They were emotional. People said, I sat there for hours during the summer and would watch Bluey come and go.
Whales like Bluey are called solitary social belugas, separated from their pods and attracted to boats, marine equipment, and people. It often makes for a lovely sight and often a sad ending. And there's often little that can be done. Strategies like relocating the whale carry serious risks of their own.
But this is a question that not only the Whale Release and Strandings group, but other whale disentanglement groups have in Canada, is what to do with solitary social belugas. And in fact, this is a conversation that we're having with DFO, so that we're prepared in a different way next time.
But what little can be done, Huntington says, was done for Bluey. People like George King watched out for him when he took his boat out to sea. People like Neil Marsh rushed to save him when they found Bluey tangled near a floating dock. In ways big and small, people tried.
The community did its best. They knew he was there. They reported when he was entangled. They enjoyed the whale. They watched the whale. No one was out to harm the whale. These things happen.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, Clarenville.
To other news now, a woman in Newfoundland and Labrador continued her year-long advocacy for better long-term mental health supports in the province on the weekend. And even though it happened to be on her wedding day, Christy Allen has spent every Saturday outside the mental health hospital in St. John's for the past 50 weeks. She showed up, as you see, in her wedding dress just an hour before tying the knot. Allen is asking people to write to their local MHAs asking for mental health care to be made more accessible. Several supporters were there to share Allen's mental health message and to wish her a lifetime of love and happiness on her wedding day.
She has been so strong coming out here every week, speaking up for what she cares about. And I care a lot too. Mental health is really important to me. So I figured what better way to support her than come out today despite the rain, despite the cold and damp, and just be with her. She's so strong, she's so passionate. I have no words to describe her, honestly.
Well, yesterday was final day of the Spirit Song Festival in St. John's. The 5-day event celebrates Indigenous arts and culture with a number of talks, workshops, and performances. An Inuit drum dance workshop was held this weekend. It was hosted by an Inuit elder who spends much of his time making drums and teaching youth about the art of drum dancing. The elder says drum dancing was often a way to celebrate, but was also used as a healing practice. He says drum dancing used to be common in the Eastern Arctic, but now is considered a dying art. He hosts these workshops to teach people the knowledge to pass down to the next generation.
We have to do something. So not just myself, but for other people trying to get that back before it's completely gone. Doesn't matter what level they grab it. We have to get a hold of it right now today, because if we don't, I don't know if who will. It might go away totally.
Well, Anthony, it's not often you spot an owl in the wild, and that's what makes this next story so special. This past weekend, Billy Gauthier shared his kayak with a snowy owl, and he likely saved its life.
Yeah, he was out on the water with a friend in Northwest River when they spotted an owl that was in trouble. It was being attacked by a group of ravens. So they made their way over to help. We'll let him describe what happened next.
It was so beautiful looking, but yet I was thinking, this poor animal is not even struggling. She's gonna drown. Put my paddle underneath her and started lifting up. Then she got a little nervous, I think, and her wings stretched out, and you could see she was quite nervous, but she couldn't fly away. She just sat there in front of me for about 15 minutes, and we just kept making eye contact, and I'll never forget those incredible yellow eyes staring right at me. It was unbelievable.
That's incredible. That's fantastic in a way. And a rescue, that was Billy Gauthier of Happy Valley Goose Bay. And, a group of ravens is called an unkindness, which is pretty appropriate in this case. Better than a murder, I suppose, of crows.
Yeah, I've heard about a murder of crows before, but not an unkindness of ravens. But yes, appropriate in this case for sure. Those photos actually have been viewed over 1 million times on Facebook. Gauthier is also a carver and says he plans to create an art piece based on the experience.
No doubt.
Well, it is the newest place to indulge your sweet tooth in downtown St. John's, but for the owner of Craig's Cookies, it means bringing the business home, sweet home.
Times are hard, so whatever I can do as a business owner to help everybody out, that's really important to me.
Well, atmospheric river is set to bring lots of rain. In fact, some record-breaking rain to parts of the southwest. I'll get into all the details when I come back.
Some incredible weather, it looks like, on the way for the southwest coast of the island. You'll get to that in a second, but first it was a lovely day in St. John's today, nice and sunny.
It's that lack of wind.
Yeah.
It really is. I think it's just so noticeable when there is no wind, because we often see it. But yeah, beautiful.
And I like that everything was kind of frozen over this morning, so the dogs didn't get all muddy.
All muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But temperatures climbed actually quite nicely, and that sun felt really nice. Let's take a look at those temperatures across the board today. 5 to 8 for the island, and then temperatures up across Labrador hovering between -1 and 3 degrees for the most part. Those temperatures have dipped a little bit. Only sitting around 1 degree in St. John's right now, and then those temperatures for the southwest sitting around 7 to 8 degrees, and that's generally where you're going to sit as we head through the night tonight. And the big weather maker moving in, already seeing some rain and wind through parts of the maritime provinces along this cold front here, and that is going to be our weather maker, at least for the southwest, over the next 24 and 48 hours as this area of low pressure continues to move towards the island and then stall, essentially. And what's going to happen, talked about the atmospheric river last week in regards to what was happening in BC, but basically what an atmospheric river is a column, a narrow column of air up in the upper atmosphere of moisture. And what happens is the cold front or the low pressure system will tap into that moisture, and that's pretty much what we're going to see. It extends all the way through to the tropics, and then watch what happens as we head into Tuesday. So it makes its way towards southwest, and then it stays there through Wednesday. So it's constantly pumping all of that moisture for the southwestern portions. Not only will it be the southwest, though, we're going to watch for the along the strait as well, where we could see higher elevations in excess of 120 millimeters, certainly possible. But I had to adjust my chart today because we don't often see these numbers. Some of the models throwing out in excess of 250 millimeters of rain. But what happens and why we're likely going to see those in the higher elevations is it's that lift. So it'll take all of that moisture, it'll lift it, and then it'll fall fairly heavy. And at this point, it's looking like some of the rainfall amounts could be upwards of 15 to 20 millimeters per hour. So that's why we do have those rainfall warnings. The other thing to watch, though, is the wind. Wind warnings pretty much all along the west coast, including the Wreck House area and Burgeo, as well as this area of low pressure essentially stalls. We're seeing these southeasterlies with this, and a lot of areas on the west coast are prone to southeasterlies to see that enhancement. So just take a look at those numbers tonight. We'll start to see those winds picking up. Wreck House area will likely see gusts in excess of 160 kilometers per hour. And then all along from Bay St. George essentially to Gross Mourne, you could see those gusts between 100 and 140 kilometers per hour. That will be for tonight. And then the Northern Peninsula and Burgeo will start to see those winds gusts tomorrow evening as that low gets a little bit closer. So you can see a number of areas seeing those winds. These are wind gusts upwards of between 100 and 130 kilometers per hour. And then again, those areas that are enhanced or that are prone to enhanced southeasterlies will likely see a little bit more. But most of the island will be seeing those wind gusts tomorrow between 70, even 80 kilometers per hour, not out of the question. And that will generally continue through Wednesday as well. So let's take a look at the future tracker. We've got that rain moving in through the night along the Quebec coast as we head through tonight, and then eventually we'll start to see those showers roll through. The winds will come first, but we'll see those showers roll through. Temperatures will stay mild, about 6-7 degrees for you in the southwest, otherwise hovering between 0 and 1 degree tonight, and then some snow. Potential changing over to snow for Happy Valley Goose Bay by the time we get into the morning hours, hovering around 5 degrees. You're actually going to see your temperatures climbing. Now, tomorrow, this is when the main event will move through. We're going to see that transition through back to snow for Happy Valley Goose Bay, but then the rain will move in, which will be heavy at times right through the day. Like I said, 15-20 millimeters per hour, certainly possible. The rain amounts dramatically drop off, though, the further north you go. Say Corner Brook, likely only going to see about 20 to 30 millimeters, but it's in those higher elevations that we will see that rain. And like I said, going to continue right through Wednesday morning. And as far as those temperatures go, You're looking at the warmest temperatures for the West Coast. We'll probably see a few showers, but it won't be until later on in the evening and overnight for eastern areas. It'll actually be a fairly nice day other than those winds, about 5 to 7 degrees, and then across Labrador. You're looking at that rain changing to snow. Happy Valley Goose Bay could pick up about 10 to 15 centimeters of snow, but I'll try to get into some of those more details when I come back.
Well, it's kind of like a dessert version of a turducken. It's a sweet treat stuffed inside a chocolate chip cookie. Craig's Cookies recently opened in downtown St. John's, and joining me now is the owner, Craig Pike. So you are originally from St. John's.
I am, yeah.
Can you tell us how this business got started?
Yeah, in 2013, I was living in Toronto. I'm an actor and a musician, and I had a month off of work. And I needed to pay my Rogers bill and my rent. So I thought, hey, I'd sell cookies and deliver them on my bike to my friends. And between the jigs of the reels, by the end of the month, I'd sold 200 dozen cookies just from marketing on Instagram and Facebook for a laugh. And flip to 8 years later, here we are opening our first location on Duckworth and 5 more shops in Toronto.
That's amazing. And why cookies?
I mean, I used to always bring the potlucks. I don't know if potlucks are still a thing, but do you remember potlucks?
Yes, it's been a while because of COVID, but...
Exactly, right? Where everybody chooses what they want to bring and you have a party. So I'd always bring chocolate chip cookies because my mom used to make them and they're really tasty. When I was trying to brainstorm what I should make out of this little small business, cookies was the no-brainer.
And like I mentioned, they are stuffed, so they're not a typical kind of chocolate chip cookie. Can you tell us about your product?
So it's a chocolate chip cookie, and we put stuff inside of them. It's my mom's chocolate chip cookie recipe. I was at the grocery store in Toronto and Pop-Tarts were on sale. So I thought, hey, maybe we'll put a Pop-Tart in a cookie, see how that goes. It worked out. And then I thought, well, maybe you can put anything in a cookie. Now we have over 100 different flavors. We'll put peanut butter cups in Newfoundland, just specific to Newfoundland. We're putting jams in cookies, caramel logs. So they're going to be flavors that you can only get in St. John's.
You say this is your 6th location. Mm-hmm. Things must be going pretty well.
Things are going good. You know, the pandemic has been difficult for a lot of people and a lot of small businesses. We've been able to pivot pretty quickly. Our business grew 40% since March 2020. We've opened 4 locations in the last year. I think everybody is starving, pardon the pun, for something really, really comforting, something nostalgic, and a cookie is that. You know, we all have an experience with baked goods, whether it be our grandparents or our parents or friends, getting into the kitchen, making bread, making cookies, making cakes. So there's something that makes us just feel really good about ourselves when we have a cookie.
It's not just even tasting the cookie, it's the smell of the cookie.
Yeah, it's the whole experience, right? Like part of it for me, being from Newfoundland up in Toronto, I wanted to create a space where everybody feels welcome. So I put hardwood floor down like my grandmother used to have. The tile is all blue like the Atlantic Ocean. So up in Toronto, everybody that comes in feels like they're coming to my nan's home out in Kilbride.
And why did you want to bring the business back to St. John's?
I just wanted to selfishly just get to come home, you know? So now I have a really great reason to come home more than just once or twice a year. And it's also just something really special that I wanted to share with local Newfoundlanders. Primarily, my main focus as a small business owner is to create a safe space for people. It's not about making money. It's not about any of those other things that business people usually like. It's about making an environment where people want to come in, they feel like they're coming home, but also having a space for my staff where they can come get a fair living wage. We pay $17 an hour to start. You know, times are hard, so whatever I can do as a business owner to help everybody out, that's really important to me.
It's amazing that someone can make a full business out of cookies.
It is, you know, I don't know how it happened, but I think in life what I kind of try to continue to believe is that if a door is offered to you, you know, open it, see what's behind it. There's no harm, no foul if it doesn't work out, but if it does work out, then continue to grow it. So, you know, in 2018, when we opened our first location in Toronto, and it was just myself and one other person, somebody came in and bought cookies, and then more people bought cookies, and then we had to hire more people, and we had to make more cookies, and we continue to open more doors. So, so far, so good.
And it all started with you just making cookies
at home in my oven, 12 cookies at a time every 10 minutes, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about it, and good luck.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me, yeah.
For a big young fella, But sometimes the bigger they are, you know, the lighter they minces around on their feet.
What? I'm terrible at small talk, or I see myself as terrible at small talk, and so whenever I engage in it, I'm like, well, I'm just really self-aware while I'm doing it.
How an awkward rental relationship inspired a comedy series.
Dave Sullivan and Mary Walsh share the real-life story behind the Mrs. Downstairs. That's coming up.
When writer Dave Sullivan moved to Portugal Cove last year, he thought pandemic life would be very quiet. And that was before he got to know his neighbor. Sullivan wrote short stories about their awkward exchanges on social media, and his posts picked up a sort of cult following. Mary Walsh was in that cult, and she called Sullivan to say that she wanted to play the Mrs. in the show that they were going to create. Well, today that 6-episode web series launches on Bell, and our Chrissy Holmes met with the pair and got this sneak peek at the Mrs. downstairs.
Hard at it, are you, boy?
Yeah, I'm hard at it.
Yeah.
When I first moved out round by, I moved in a bit of a hurry because I needed to find a place because I thought I was leaving Newfoundland. So I moved into this spot and I thought I had it to myself.
You live next door, or?
No, I live downstairs.
Sure enough, I didn't. Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
It's just that the property manager never mentioned anything about anybody living downstairs.
I've been living down there the last 8 years.
I would have to pass by her every time I would leave or come into the house, and she was always outside. It's a beautiful view of the ocean and everything like that. And so we just sort of started forging this sort of little small talk friendship. Anyway, I gotta get back at this. These boxes aren't gonna move themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the middle of the pandemic. All I really had was me, the ocean, and the missus downstairs was really the only people I interacted with, like, on a personal level. So it was like, yeah, so I started writing these little tiny stories about like life out there, and yeah, people started really getting into it.
I kept trying to pick Dave's brain about what she was like, but Dave wasn't really forthcoming in a way. And so, of course, like all my other characters, I based her on my mother, who's a lot meaner than the Mrs. Downstairs. And so in a way, you know, I'm relentless in that way, like, you know, because like Dave says, everybody has their own life, and her life is, oh, Miss Buddy's upstairs, I had somebody to talk to all the time, right?
Are you light on your feet?
What?
You know, like Joey hauled us into Confederation kicking and screaming. I'm hauling him into my life.
Are you light on your feet? Because the last crowd, they were like a herd of Jesus moose up there.
Rick Hillier always says that Newfoundlanders aren't friendly, they're just nosy.
I mean, I guess I'm light on my feet.
And the very fact that he was trying to push everybody away, like he was drawing us to him, you know what I mean?
You're a big young fella, but sometimes the bigger they are, you know, the lighter they minces around on their feet.
What? I'm terrible at small talk. Or I see myself as terrible at small talk, and so whenever I engage in it, I'm like, I'm just really self-aware while I'm doing it, which I think feeds the comedy of anybody I speak to, because they can tell that I'm being weird, like right now.
Jesus, they'll rent the in it one.
What's it like playing a character that is based on yourself?
It's different. It's a pretty vulnerable thing to be, I think, sometimes.
So has Mrs. Downstairs seen this yet?
No, but she's really sweet, and she's over the moon about it. And I was really nervous about telling her. I worried about it quite a bit because there's two ways that could go. There's no real middle ground. But you know, she understands that it's not really about her. It's about the situation.
How did you break it to her?
I went home one day and I said, funny thing, you're never going to guess what happened over the last 7 months. Like I remember the day after I told her, she phoned me at like 9:00 at night and she was like, what's the name of the show? And I said, it's the Mrs. Downstairs. She went, I'm the Mrs. Downstairs. I was like, well, yes, sort of, but like, kind of. You know, yes and no.
I find that people who work that hard, they're usually running from something.
Then when she finds out that Mary Walsh is playing her, what happened?
I think her mind blew a little bit. Like, she was like, Mary Walsh? And I was like, yeah. And she said, she's just like, you know, those famous Hollywood actors to me. I was like, actually, she is just like those famous Hollywood actors.
I added some stuff, like, you know, I improvised, and Dave said, I'm going to go, I got to run. And I went, yeah, good luck with that. And, you know, the Mrs. Downstairs would never say anything at all like that. We reassured her that it wasn't her, but she was kind of delighted that something was based on her. You know, she actually said, do you think she'd mind me saying this?
I don't think so.
She said, when we were leaving, she said, other than the day I got married and the day I had my youngsters, this is the best day of my whole life.
Good luck with it all anyway.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, she's just thrilled. Yeah. And she loves Dave.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Like I it's such a strange thing, but I got so much out of it. Like, you know, I have so much respect for her, and I have so much respect for that time of living out there, you know. Yeah, I would say that's kind of what I got. Just open yourself up a bit more, because you never know what can happen.
All right, looks like there's a laugh or two. The Mrs. Downstairs premieres today on 5 TV, and if you get your television service from Bell, that's channel 1. You can also watch the Mrs. Downstairs on the 5 TV app, which is exclusive to Bell.
Now that COP26 is done and dusted, all the delegates who went to Scotland are arriving home. I spoke with one of them who just got back, Rod Lang, the Director of Environment with the Nunavut government. You'll hear that conversation coming up on Here and Now.
On the heels of the climate change conference in Glasgow, Here and Now has been hearing from various voices. We've heard from the president of the National Inuit Youth Council, and we've heard from David Suzuki, and both feel the Premier's push to keep producing oil doesn't align with what climate scientists are saying. Now, the Director of Environment with the Nunavut government was also at the summit, and he spoke with Crosstalk's Adam Walsh.
So why did you go to COP26?
I went to participate on a panel that was on self-determination and research and climate change.
So you went there to present. Can you tell me about the discussion that followed and what you talked about?
At the panel, there was a broad overview given by President Nathan Obed of ITK, which gave a really good broad overview of climate change and the realities kind of in Inuit Nunavut and the issues that Inuit are facing. And then there was, when it came to my point to talk, I talked a lot more specifically about what is going on relative to climate change in Nunatsiavut, and the research pieces that we have in place to ensure that Inuit are being represented properly in research initiatives, especially related to climate change.
When it comes to climate change, can you tell me a little of what the Nunatsiavut government is doing?
Yeah, so there are a variety of climate change projects on the go. They're a federally funded initiative where there's a lump sum money being given to the region, where a regional climate change committee determines the funding for those projects. And so there's a whole bunch of projects that have been funded through that. There's some that are looking at climate change related to rattles or plinias, which are areas of open water that stay open year-round, that are highly productive. There's other projects like a kayak program that was funded, and every year there's 3 or 4 initiatives that would be funded through that. And then we have participated in the development of the National Inuit Climate Change Strategy, which was a document that was produced and released by ITK, but the 4 Inuit regions contributed to the development of that. And within that, it outlines kind of 5 pillars of to address climate change and to address it at kind of that Inuit Nunangat level. And then each region is going to work on the development of their own climate change strategy to feed into that initiative.
So you're at COP26 in Scotland. What was the response to your presentation?
It was a really good response, actually. It was a panel, so we received questions from the crowd, and there was a lot of discussion relative to different initiatives and kind of what can be done to address climate change in the different regions and throughout the world.
With all that discussion, you're in this place where everyone's talking about the environment and climate change. What do you think it's going to do?
I mean, it's a combination of things. I think there is a lot of people saying things at COP26, a bit of a performative statements or otherwise, but there are a lot of really important discussions that are happening. Obviously, the global discussions related to temperature increases in the world and what that actually means. But there's the other reality that in Nunatsiavut right now, the modeling shows that in the next 40 years, the average air temperature is going to increase by 4 degrees Celsius already, and 6 degrees in the winter. And in the past 40 years, since 1950, Nunatsiavut has lost 40 snow days, which is over a month of time with snow on the ground, and that has really big implications in terms of Inuit health and well-being, ability to travel and use the land, to access food resources. And the reality of climate change is that it's actually impacting Indigenous communities substantially more than other regions. And a lot of that has to do with inequities that exist in Indigenous regions. And so, there's housing and food insecurity and a lot of other issues that when you have these climate change issues, it's actually making these issues worse.
So when you flew out, when all was said and done, did you leave optimistic, pessimistic, or somewhere in between?
I would say a little bit of both. I think it's the reality is there's always going to be the political side to climate change or to any of these large discussions, and I think that's the reality. I mean, different countries have different economies and have different goals on what they want to do, and when you're trying to get that many people to sit down and agree to things, it's quite challenging. But I do think that coming back from there, I think there's a lot of hope. I think the reality is that there's going to be a lot of really good solutions that can be implemented to help address climate change, but the reality is making sure that the resources are there. Resource allocation and funding and these kind of things need to be there for Indigenous communities to work on the things they want to, or communities that are really experiencing climate change.
Thanks, Rod.
No problem.
And you can hear that full interview on the Crosstalk podcast, which is available on the CBC Listen app.
Well, potato wart disfigures potatoes and reduces crops, making potatoes unmarketable, but it poses no threat to human health. That's according to a study about potatoes in this country. In other news, more heavy rain could hit BC's flood zone this week, and it could push water levels higher again in hard-hit places like Abbotsford.
The latest weather warning is about rain coming through, and the ground is particularly saturated. That makes it a much more challenging situation.
The focus remains on Barrowtown Pump Station and on the protective dike. City officials are warning that those key flood defenses could face a new test. Across southern BC, crews are working to clear highways and fix rail lines and dikes. Air Canada is also helping by boosting cargo capacity into and out of Vancouver after flooding cut some key supply chains.
Welcome back. Well, a Halifax artist is becoming a star on social media for drawing people he doesn't know and then presenting them with his sketches.
Yeah, the videos he posts of his work are attracting followers from around the world. Gareth Hampshire has that story.
This is how Maxwell Macaulay's making a name for himself, bringing to life sketches of people who often don't even know he's drawing them.
I like the idea of just interacting with people in Halifax. Giving a drawing to someone is kind of an excuse in a way to have a conversation with someone. So people open up almost like immediately when I give them a drawing, and I think that aspect of it has been really super cool.
I live in a place called Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, which is
He started doing it for fun and to practice his artwork a couple of years ago, but sharing his process on social media through videos recorded on his phone has resulted in him becoming more popular than he ever expected.
All these people in Halifax are really enjoying it, so I figured probably people online would like it as well. So why not give it a go?
Creating portraits like this and then capturing people's reactions has earned him hundreds of thousands of followers on the social media platform TikTok, where he's also generated millions of likes.
It just boomed. So, internet's weird.
After being bullied at high school, he turned to art as an escape from anxiety that led to depression.
Struggling a lot with mental health, and the only thing I could really lean on was my art. So, stress reliever. Something I only really enjoyed, I thought, like out of all the stuff with school. I really did like school, but couldn't concentrate as much.
Macaulay, who goes by the moniker Slick Skills, has produced about 300 sketches of people going about their lives around Halifax so far, in places like cafes, bars and parks. Being showcased on a few popular social media accounts has also led to a demand for his work. He's been able to quit his job as a house painter with all the work he's getting. Now he's thinking about a book and even a store featuring his art. But it's the reaction from his surprise sketches that he gets the most out of.
Here you go.
Oh, thank
that is for you.
So much. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I think it's super cool. I feel like it's a good way to kind of brighten someone's day. They may not be expecting it, so I mean, I was already having a good day, but it made my day better.
No, I'm just happy that she's happy.
Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, very talented, and if he had to draw the weather pattern this week, it'd be very simple. We're in a blocking pattern for the most part, which is why we're going to see all of that rain for parts of the southwest and then even along the strait in Labrador as well. We've got a ridge of high pressure to the east right now, and then as this area of low pressure moves in through the afternoon on Tuesday, continuing into Wednesday, that area of high pressure is essentially going to allow this low to stall, and it's going to stick around for most of the week. In fact, it's going to retrograde, which means it's going to go from east to west, and we're going to see that low pretty much stick around right through Saturday. Now, the good news with this one is, if there is any good news, is the fact that it's going to be mild with that system for sure. So here's the low. We're going to talk about Wednesday night into Tuesday night rather into Wednesday morning. So that low is going to continue to bring all of that rain in that southeasterly flow right through Wednesday afternoon. It looks like Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and then areas just to the north of that will actually see that transition back to snow and could pick up about 10, maybe even 15 centimeters of snow with that one. But the rain will eventually taper off, and that will happen as we head into Wednesday. But then we're in that easterly flow, and we're going to see showers right across the board. Nowhere near as heavy as what we're seeing on Wednesday, but we will see showers, and it will be unsettled through Thursday. It looks like right across the board, but it's bringing in some of that milder air, and it is doing the same for parts of Labrador. So we're going to get back up into the single digits on the plus side of the mercury as we get into later on in the week. So there's your temperatures, 10 to 12 degrees as we get into Wednesday, and then southeastern Labrador even 7 to 8 degrees through the afternoon. And then for Thursday, there's those warmer temperatures yet again. So continuing to see the double digits right across the island, and then about 4 to 8 degrees for southeastern Labrador. Now, north and west will continue to see that flurry activity at least through the first half of the day on Thursday. Look at that, double digits continue right through the weekend. Things will get a little bit unsettled into Saturday with some showers possible through the afternoon. But again, some sun will likely peek out as well. So not a bad start to the weekend for sure. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at, unfortunately, gray skies. But again, those mild temperatures. Looks like for Saturday, we'll likely see about 9 degrees for western Newfoundland. They might bump up a degree or two, but overall unsettled for eastern Labrador as well, with the return of those flurries by the time we get to Saturday. Wanted to sharing this photo. This is tonight's sunset.
So calm.
Yeah, over St. Philip's Beach. That was tonight. Susan shared that photo with us.
Nice turnaround.
Great turnaround. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
So you're going to be pretty busy, Ashley, for over the next 24, 48 hours with all of this weather coming.
Yeah, definitely. Would like to see some stuff on social media too, if possible, if safe, obviously, just from your house with, you know, some rain video, if we can get some of that, or anything. Just keep me posted, because it's kind of hard to see that stuff down there for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be lots happening out on the West Coast. Hopefully everyone stays safe.
Definitely. Clear out your storm drains.
Good advice.
Right, I'm going to go look up potato wart and all of its mysteries as the show concludes. And you may have caught that story, full story on tomorrow's program, I guess. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.